Well, that was poor timing on my part. The snow removal vehicle was trucking by halfway through what I was doing. Sorry about that. Part two, assuming it keeps going the direction I think it's going. So carrying on, the next thing that came up, and we had a bunch of stuff this weekend from Mikey Sutton, and the first one up is he repeated his old Strange Academy scoop. So Strange Academy is kind of exactly what you think it is. Doctor Strange running an academy for magic users. Very Hogwarts-ish, at least in spirit. Now, I have not read it. This is a fairly new IP. And he put out this scoop originally in August. And at the time, he said it was either Disney Plus or animated. Now he says it's Disney Plus. He's dropped the animated. And this is a rare case. Oh, dear God. This is a rare case where another scooper, in this case Daniel, came out in September and said, this is not true, this is not happening. Now, Sutton's logic for this was that Strange Academy would work to draw in Harry Potter fans. It would intentionally have that sort of Hogwarts feel, but it's Marvel. Daniel didn't actually dispute the logic. He said that the X-Men would serve that function. The X-Mansion would essentially do the same sort of thing. I personally think both of them are, in terms of their logic, are a little bit off. I think there's actually a difference in tone between the Harry Potter franchise and what you get in a comic book. In Marvel, you can have a character like the Punisher. You can have a serious tone that I'd argue Harry Potter never quite gets to. There are things meant to be scary in Harry Potter, but it's, tonally speaking, to me, it's not a world where Frank Miller could go write about it. Not really, not without breaking it. So to me, tonally, there is a disconnect there. And I'm afraid if they do something like this, it's going to have Ant-Man's problem, where it's a little too off-brand for regular fans, and so you're limiting its appeal to some extent. Now, that doesn't mean that it's right, it's wrong. I would just need more there to convince me. I also think getting Benedict Cumberbatch to do anything more than cameo in something like that would be very difficult. But I suppose if there's enough money, maybe he would. The next thing from Sutton is that Spider-Man will appear in the Fantastic Four film and have a love-hate relationship with Johnny Storm. So this idea, the relationship between the two, is born of a Dan Slott team-up run from the early 2000s. And I don't have a strong reaction to that. Worth noting is that for Tom Holland to appear in MCU films in the future, we need a new deal with Sony. And typically the way the arrangement is, it's a 1-to-1 ratio of Sony films to Marvel films. Pardon me. So would this be his MCU appearance between Spider-Man films? Or has Marvel negotiated for him to appear more? We simply don't know. Is this plausible? Sure. It's you could totally go this route. I don't have a strong feeling against it at all. But we'll need a little more info before we can start to lean into it. I will say, and I've said this before in articles, I do believe Sutton, when it comes to scoops related to Sony, he has better sources than other scoopers. It's worth noting. I'll have to go through that sometime. But yeah, I feel like his Sony stuff is among his stronger material in terms of veracity. Next up from Sutton, Spider-Woman. So he thinks there could be an association, an arrangement with Spider-Woman that's similar to Spider-Man. For those who don't know, the Jessica Drew version of Spider-Woman, which is apparently what we're getting, her rights are split between Marvel, or Disney really, and Sony. Each owns different aspects of the characters. They can both use her, but if they did it independently, it'd be without certain elements that the other side owns. So there's a lot of sense to coming to an arrangement if you want to use that iteration of the character. So do we have any reason to believe that this is the case, that this might be happening? Well, we still have the issue of a new agreement being necessary, unless, and we don't know this, unless she was included in that very short deal they signed 2 falls ago. But this is not the first time we've heard this, and it's not the first time we've heard this, or sorry, it's not only coming from Sutton. Way back in January of 2019, Charles Murphy, one of the more credible, maybe the most credible scooper. If you exclude his speculation, his speculation's all over the place, but his scoops are very good. He intimated that this was a thing, that she had been originally in the Far From Home script, but then removed in favor of Fury and Maria Hill. So that kind of gives you an idea that this sort of idea has been floating around for a while. And since then, we've had more definitive speculation from people about her being part of the MCU or in the MCU. And we also had the director, Olivia Wilde, obliquely hint that it might be connected to the MCU. So nobody knows definitively. But since we've had 2 people independently report that talks occurred, both Sutton and Murphy have both said talks between Marvel and Sony occurred about cooperating over the character. I believe the talks did happen, and I think it's likely some sort of arrangement has occurred. And I would expect that arrangement would be similar to how they've dealt with Tom Holland's Spider-Man. We'll have to wait and see, but that's my feeling on it. All right. We have a Daniel Rumour. So Daniel has stuff he puts out as scoops, things he thinks are facts. And then he has stuff that he puts out as rumor. This is a rumor. So he said that Henry Cavill has reached out to Marvel after the news about J.J. Abrams' Superman. That's his rumor. Now, that rumor is not unique to him. To me, it comes across as supposition from not just him, but other people. We have had Mikey Sutton say that Marvel would like Cavill to be their Captain Britain. Just inspired casting, but I don't know if that's true or not. And I don't know if this rumor is true or not. We do know that Cavill refused to appear for the cameo in Shazam. He either did that for money reasons, to get a new deal, or both. We simply don't know. We do know that Warner Brothers execs want to get away from Snyder stuff. Cavill is sort of the face of Zack Snyder's DCEU since he was in Man of Steel. So who knows what's going on? The DCEU is a giant mess. It's difficult to predict. I would like Cavill as Captain Britain if they go that way. I think he's a good choice, but we'll have to wait and see. And he certainly wouldn't be cheap. Disney has deep pockets, but that's worth keeping in mind. There were some signs of cost cutting in WandaVision, so it's not like Marvel will just do anything they want. It's not carte blanche. Then we had a Sutton Q&A, and some of this is rapid fire, some of this is not. So he said the MCU will cast their own Magneto even if one of the Fox iterations appears as part of the multiverse. That's my expectation as well. Feige has said he wants to do something different from what Fox did. That would include a different cast, especially for an iconic character like him. So, yeah, I agree with that. I think that's correct. Next up, he says Agents of Atlas, either a film or a show, is not currently in development, but he believes it is coming and it's going to be gradually built towards, just like the Avengers. So, Shang-Chi is a bit like, or not Shang-Chi, sorry, Agents of Atlas is a lot like Shang-Chi, where, there's our machine again, where scoopers are big fans, but it's even more obscure than Shang-Chi. So for those of you who don't know, Agents of Atlas is like an Avengers group, but all the characters are Asian, and they are headquartered in San Francisco. That's it, really. So it's a super group. It just happens to be all, and when I say Asian, I mean East Asian and Southeast Asian, not West Asian. So that's what Agents of Atlas is. So it is not a popular IP. It is a fairly new one. The comic runs don't last, I think in part because the characters themselves, all the members are pretty obscure. So it's difficult to draw in casual readers. And, is something like Shang-Chi possible? Well, it's been rumored by other people. Murphy and GWW, Geeks Worldwide, I forget which writer, early last year both thought it was coming. But their surmise seemed to be based off the fact Shang-Chi shot some scenes in San Francisco. And Murphy would say later that it's completely unrelated. So could Agents of Atlas be coming? It could be. We don't have strong evidence one way or the other. I think if it did come, it would be a Disney Plus show, because to me, it's the logical place to put Shang-Chi. So one of the things that Sutton believes, and the rest of his scoop, was that one of the members is Swordmaster and he'll debut in Shang-Chi 2. I don't know if we're going to get a Shang-Chi 2. I always thought a better transition would be Shang-Chi to Agents of Atlas because, and I've gone through this before, I don't think there's a big appetite for martial arts films. And that's kind of what Shang-Chi is billing itself as. I went through the numbers of martial arts films for the last 20 to the last 25 years, and none of them have been blockbusters or even big hits. And so I feel like the market for what Shang-Chi is about is not as big as people think. I think what the hope is that Shang-Chi will hit big in China. I think that's what Marvel hopes too. Marvel's hoping it'll get Black Panther numbers in China. Black Panther, if you look at the breakdown, did the bulk of its business in the United States. That's where it really hit big. So they would be hoping for it being a huge hit in China. The thing, and the MCU is very popular in China, so there's reason to believe that could work. We do have to be cautious though. Mulan completely bombed in China, and that was the audience it was directed at. So you have to be careful. But yeah, could Agents of Atlas come? Yes, it could be either a show or a film. I'm just a little hesitant to jump on board because I'm unsure how well Shang-Chi will do. His next bit says, so he repeated that Marvel was looking at Jennifer Lawrence to play Sue Storm in the Fantastic Four, but she's not signed. So if this sounds familiar, it's because not that long ago, there was a rumor she was going to Australia to film Fantastic Four. Came from the Daily Mail and the Daily Telegraph. That got debunked by someone from the trades. I think it was Justin Kroll. But what he debunked was that she was going to Australia to film Fantastic Four. He didn't debunk the casting. So we don't know if she was or wasn't cast. We don't know if she was approached. We don't know if she is going to be approached. It's up in the air. But Sutton says that Marvel is interested in her. So there you go. Food for thought. He said there were discussions to have Killmonger as Black Panther take over the romance with Storm. And by Storm, I mean the X-Men Storm. This makes sense to me. Storm in the comics has a pretty iconic romance with Black Panther. Now, it's a modern romance. Originally, her love interest was a character named Forge, but I think the Black Panther one was the one we were always going to get. So this makes sense to me. Killmonger as Black Panther makes sense to me. I've gone over this before. The only sort of question mark would be Michael B. Jordan's availability. If he's going to do J.J. Abrams' Superman, we don't know that he is. But if that's the case, then you have to wonder about his schedule. But yeah, I mean, I think in general that's a plausible thing. Next up, he repeated that Alpha Flight will appear in a Wolverine versus Hulk film. I've gone over that before. I actually did a big long article about Alpha Flight in the MCU, if we ever see that. I hope that's true. I don't know if it is, but it'd be nice to see. Next up, Tenoch Huerta is playing the Casper Cole version of White Tiger in Black Panther 2. We know the actor will be in Black Panther 2. That came out. We just don't know the character. White Tiger is certainly plausible, so that's something to consider. Repeated that Sony Pictures will be bought out, but it'll be in a few years because the pandemic has made big purchases like that more difficult. He also reconfirmed that a new deal has been struck between Sony and Marvel, and I think both of those things are actually likely. For those who don't know, Sony Pictures, which is currently headed by Tom Rothman, who helped run Fox into the ground, outside of the Spider-Man films, doesn't really make money. So while Sony, the Sony Corporation, is very profitable, the Sony Pictures is not. So it would not surprise me if they sold it. They don't actually have to sell it to Marvel for Marvel to get Spider-Man back. If they sell it to anyone, they get Spider-Man back. So something to think about. As for a new deal, yeah, I mean, if you're Sony, why wouldn't you do a new deal with Marvel? Nothing else makes money. Really. Marvel or Marvel associated things. Next up, he repeated that Marvel wants Mike Colter back as Luke Cage. I've been dubious of this for quite a while, partially because of Coulter's age, and partially because I don't think there's a lot of mileage you can get out of him. What are you going to do? It only makes sense to bring him back if you're bringing back Krysten Ritter's Jessica Jones, and you're going to do the later development where those two are a couple and have a kid, which to me skips over the interesting elements of both characters. But other than that, I find that unlikely unless Coulter's going to do sort of like some sort of cameo or something like that. That's just my opinion, though, and Sutton's been pretty consistent about that. Next, Thunderbolts and Excalibur are both coming. So Thunderbolts is that's not something Sutton came up with. That is a scoop from Roger Wardell. That is a pseudonym for a Marvel insider. No one knows who he is. He's incredibly accurate, and he said in December of 2018, Thunderbolts are coming. Now, Sutton says in association with that Norman Osborn won't be part of that group. Now, in 2019, a lot of people speculated that Norman Osborn would be the leader of that group, and they'd be doing a storyline called Dark Reign. But that didn't come from Roger Wardell. He did not include Osborn as part of the Thunderbolts. And I agree with Sutton that Osborn won't be part of that group because Marvel doesn't own him. That's a Sony character. So I do think the Thunderbolts are coming. I think Falcon and Winter Soldier are building towards that, but I don't believe Osborn will be part of that. My thought has always been that Zemo will be the leader of the Thunderbolts, and we'll see if that happens or not. The Excalibur thing, that is also an old Sutton scoop. That goes back to fall of 2019. He said that originally it was going to be a trilogy of films. I believe the last time he talked about it was going to be a show. I don't know where he's at in that respect now. And he said that Black Knight and Captain Britain will be the heads of that group. Now for Sutton, that Captain Britain would have to be someone like Henry Cavill. But I've always thought if you're going to... Because Black Knight's not normally part of Excalibur. He's not an original Excalibur member. He's normally an Avenger. If you're going to have Black Knight in Excalibur, though, you might go for the female Captain Britain. So lately, Jonathan Hickman, who's writing the X-Men stuff for Marvel, has given the title of Captain Britain to Brian Braddock's sister, Betsy. Betsy Braddock is normally Psylocke, but he's been using her as Captain Britain. And I thought they might go that way to space out the gender of the group. Although Excalibur's pretty female heavy if you go with the original cast. So we'll see. Food for thought, but I would like to see Excalibur. I like Excalibur. And it was an interesting comic, a little different from most of the mutant comics. Namor news has died down. He's coming, but not for a while. Namor stuff comes up here, then, and everywhere. He's the oldest Marvel character. He has issues because of his rights. So who knows when we'll see him or in what. I thought Black Panther 2 was a spot for him, but maybe not. I do want to bring up that Sutton believes his rights are back at Marvel, not shared with Universal. I don't believe that. I've gone over why I don't believe that. I'll try to remember to include the links below for why I don't believe that, but just food for thought. Repeated that a Disney Plus show for Gambit is still in the works. Sure, why not? And repeated that Midnight Suns is coming. consisting of at least Ghost Rider, Blade, Jennifer Kale, and Glyph. Midnight Suns is an old scoop from him, and it's something I believe he inherited from Lords of the Long Box, their old source, dubbed the Black Knight. Although I think originally the team was going to do Spirits of Vengeance. This is a funny thing. This group, this idea is something inherited from Marvel Entertainment and Jeff Loeb. That was part of the Hulu plan for Loeb back in 2019. But Sutton has kept on this all the way through. Okay, next up. Sutton again, our last Sutton. So he was talking about Jessica Jones. And specifically, he was talking about her coming back with the original actress, with Krysten Ritter, and being on either FX or Hulu, or sorry, let me correct myself, on Hulu, not FX. And then it'll be R-rated, and that this is also where the Punisher is going to go. He adds that there's no development yet, Krysten Ritter hasn't been approached yet, but the talks are happening, and that her show may introduce Dakota North. So, Mikey has been talking about Netflix characters on Hulu for a very long time. And there's an important context to this, even though he's been very solid on this information. Originally, when he proposed this, he believed that these Hulu shows would be run through Marvel Entertainment and Jeff Loeb underneath Kevin Feige. So he was not aware that Feige was going to come in, force Loeb out, cancel all his plans, and so on and so forth. So it's worth knowing that this general idea has not changed in, a year and a half now. I believe the idea of R-rated shows on Hulu, so for the rest of the world, that's going to be Star, not Hulu. I don't know why Mikey likes Hulu so much, but anyway. Because of Feige's recent comments about R-rated material, I'm pretty hesitant to think anything is going to be R-rated anymore. To what end? You can do a Jessica Jones show, PG, and it'll still work. You're really only going to cut out a little bit of nudity, maybe some language, but substantively, it's doable. The other thing is, do you need a Jessica Jones show? The best A-grade Jessica Jones material already appeared in the first season of the Netflix show. After that, in the comics, she becomes a supporting character. She's there to be a friend to Carol Danvers, which is, I think, a role they're just not going to bother with. They're not going to give her that. That's probably going to be Monica Rambeau. She becomes Luke Cage's partner. She has his kid. There is no Luke Cage in the MCU, so you're not anywhere near that moment. Like, the need for her to have her own show, I think, is pretty small. And if you're going to do it, you're far better off to do a reboot, because the best material is something you didn't get a chance to do. Netflix owns it. So that's my opinion there. The other thing I wanted to mention was Dakota North. So most, or probably all of you, have never heard of Dakota North. I certainly hadn't until it came up a while back. So Dakota North is a very minor character. And the only reason I know anything about her is back in the day, Tim from Lords of the Long Box said that she was a show ABC was considering back in 2019. That was his guess. It was speculation. We now know that was not what was being considered. ABC was considering an Elsa Bloodstone show, which they passed on. So I kind of feel like Sutton's throwing her name in there just so Tim can get rid of some copies of Dakota North he has floating around. I'm being a little facetious, but I don't think Marvel spends a whole lot of time thinking about Dakota North. I could be wrong, but I'm a little dubious of that. Last but not least, we have some Reddit stuff. A little background here. So in July, a Redditor put up 2 posts, one about WandaVision, one about Thor 4. At the time, I discussed the Thor 4 post. I didn't discuss the WandaVision post because I didn't believe it, and I'll tell you why in a second. At any rate, another Redditor, and this is one of Charles Murphy's sources for WandaVision, when this post dropped out, attacked the person so voraciously the post got removed. and the person quit posting on Reddit. So they just went after this person. A couple days ago, someone with a good memory believed that the person's WandaVision scoop was actually pretty good and reposted it. And because of this, people started to question the behavior of the other Redditor who chased this person off. As they should, because that person is... I went through their history when I talked about them about a month ago. Oh, here we go. Snow remover. I'll talk through it. I just have to live with it. Their behavior was well, similar to a lot of scoopers, a lot of yelling and screaming, being angry at people. So I'm not going to go through the WandaVision stuff. We're going to save that for when we talk about the show specifically. But I will go through the Thor 4 post that this person put up. And we can kind of think about the veracity of it as we get deafened by the snow removal machine. So here we go. The quote, "The main story is Jane having cancer and somehow she manages to lift the hammer and this cancels her disease but does not cure." This is very similar to the source material. Lady Sif is alive. Thor will find her in an ice planet with a complete new look. She dies at the end of the movie. Valkyrie is a supporting character. Her sexuality would be explicit. So her pseudo-romantic scene in Ragnarok got cut, if you didn't know that. She appears the same amount of time as Lady Sif. Christian Bale is the big bad. Guardians of the Galaxy appear. Loki does not appear. So Christian Bale, we know. Guardians of the Galaxy, we know. Loki not appearing, we've heard before. Finally, Thor goes to Valhalla, where dead characters will appear. The only confirmed person was Idris Elba. We know he's in Australia for Thor 4 because he was spotted on set, so that's true. So we have a bunch of things that are verified here. The only thing that's not certain is... Well, technically the Valkyrie stuff's not certain, but I would expect that because Marvel got a lot of criticism for that. Although I'd rather just not see Valkyrie at all. Is the Lady Sif stuff. That's the biggest element. And if Sif dies, which was the plan for Ragnarok, except Jamie Alexander wasn't available for filming. But she was supposed to die in Ragnarok. So if she dies in Thor 4, it's going to nuke a couple of old scoops. Both discussing film. Jacob Fisher discussing film. And Mikey Sutton had said a Sif show, or a show with Sif, was coming. So if she's dead, that seems pretty unlikely. Not impossible, it is the multiverse, but unlikely. So that is the Thor 4 scoop. It seems pretty good. We can't be sure it's going to be 100% accurate because the WandaVision post is not 100% accurate. So keep that in mind. Don't take it as gospel. Just probable. And that catches us up with everything not WandaVision from the news that I dropped yesterday. I'll include a link to that article in the description. I'll also include timestamps. I have a bunch of things in process, hopefully minus the snow remover. I've been working on a Wolverine origin article. I just kind of want to go through the convoluted mess that it has become and what I hope is done with him. And I also was working on a short little article on who the Scoopers are. That'll, I think, probably just be exclusively a vlog. Just so people know who the hell I'm talking about and why. Because I have a tendency to not explain. Just because I don't want to spend every article going through that. Periodically I've done it, but it's been a while and I should put something on video so it's a lot easier to reference. So beyond that, we have the usual stuff, the news digests, and so on and so forth. So anyways, thanks for watching, and we will see you all next time.